Outside Westbrook Elementary at 3:15 p.m., Edith Walsh, CEO of one of the city's fastest-growing tech companies, was violently dragged into an unmarked van while reaching for her daughter's hand. Parents screamed, phones recorded, but within seconds, the vehicle vanished into traffic. Miles Bowen, a single father waiting in the pickup line, was the only one who didn't just watch, he acted. What he didn't know was that this wasn't a random kidnapping. It was an orchestrated hit by the very people Edith trusted most, designed to bury secrets that could destroy an empire built on lies. And Miles, a man with his own tragic history tied to the same corruption, held the one piece of evidence that could either save Edith's life or get them both killed. Tonight, a schoolyard witness would become the only ally a desperate CEO could trust, and together they would uncover a truth that would shatter everything. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the parking lot of Westbrook Elementary as parents lined up in their vehicles, engines idling, eyes scanning for their daughters and sons emerging from the double doors. Miles Bowen sat in his aging sedan, window down, watching the controlled chaos of dismissal time. His 7-year-old daughter Sophie would appear any minute, backpack bouncing, chattering about her day. This was his favorite part of working from home as a freelance data analyst. This daily ritual of being present, being there, being the parent his daughter could count on. He noticed the black van immediately because it didn't belong. No school sticker on the windshield, no parent emerging to join the pickup line. Just dark tinted windows and an engine that purred with expensive precision. The van had positioned itself near the front entrance, angled in a way that blocked the security camera's view. Miles's instincts, honed from years working in corporate cybersecurity before his life fell apart, screamed that something was wrong. Then he saw her. Edith Walsh, unmistakable even in casual clothes. Her professional demeanor somehow present even in jeans and a blazer. Miles recognized her from the news, from the tech blogs, from the business section that detailed her company's meteoric rise. Novatech Solutions had revolutionized data encryption, and Edith Walsh had become the face of innovation, the youngest female CEO to break into the top tier of the city's tech sector. She was holding her daughter's hand, laughing at something the girl said, completely unaware of the van's side door sliding open. It happened in seconds. 3 men in ski masks erupted from the van. The first grabbed Edith's daughter, lifting her off the ground. The second and third seized Edith herself, hands clamping over her mouth, arms pinning her struggling form. Parents screamed. Someone shouted to call the police. Phones emerged, recording, broadcasting, but no one moved. No one intervened. They were frozen in shock, in fear, in the paralysis that grips people when violence erupts in spaces meant to be safe. Except Miles. He was out of his car before conscious thought caught up with instinct. His door slammed, his feet pounded pavement, and he was running toward the van even as it started to pull away. One of the masked men was still half out of the vehicle, pulling the door closed. Miles reached him, grabbed his jacket, yanked hard. The man stumbled backward, crashed onto the asphalt. Miles didn't stop. He lunged for the van's door, got his hands on the frame just as the driver hit the accelerator. The van lurched forward. Miles held on, his body dragging, shoes scraping pavement. Through the gap in the door, he could see Edith's terrified eyes. See her daughter crying, see the masked men trying to kick him loose. His shoulders screamed in pain. His grip was slipping. Then he saw something that made him hold on despite the agony, a small detail that changed everything. One of the masked men had a tattoo on his wrist. 3 interlocking circles. Miles knew that symbol. He had seen it before, years ago, on the wrist of the man who had destroyed his life, who had orchestrated the cover-up that killed his wife and ruined his career. This wasn't a random kidnapping. This was connected to Novatech, connected to the same network of corruption that had taken everything from him. The van swerved hard. Miles lost his grip, hit the pavement, and rolled. Pain exploded through his body, but he forced himself up, forced himself to focus. The van was accelerating, but he had seen enough. He had the license plate committed to memory, had noted the route, had recognized that tattoo. And most importantly, he had locked eyes with Edith Walsh in that brief moment, had seen recognition flash across her face. She had seen him. She knew someone had tried to help. Other parents rushed over as Miles staggered to his feet. Someone was calling the police, voices overlapping in panic. A teacher ran out, asking if he was hurt, if he needed an ambulance. Miles waved them off, his mind already racing through possibilities, through connections, through the network of information he had spent 5 years quietly assembling while the world thought he had simply given up and faded away. A hand touched his shoulder. He turned to find Sophie, his daughter, tears streaming down her face. She had seen everything, had watched her father throw himself at danger. Miles dropped to one knee, pulled her into a fierce hug. "I'm okay, sweetheart. I'm okay." But his mind was elsewhere, calculating, planning, understanding with crystal clarity that this moment, this terrible moment, was the opening he had been waiting for. The police arrived within minutes, sirens wailing, officers taking statements, securing the scene. Miles gave them the license plate, described the van, mentioned the tattoo, but not what it meant. Not yet. He watched them work with the practiced eye of someone who had once been on the inside, who understood how investigations could be derailed, how evidence could disappear, how the powerful protected their own. As the chaos continued around him, as parents hugged their daughters and sons tighter, as news vans started arriving to capture the story, Miles made a decision. He pulled out his phone, navigated to an encrypted folder he hadn't opened in 3 years, and looked at the files inside. Evidence, documentation, recordings. All of it collected by Sean Douglas, his best friend, his former colleague at Novatech. The man who had died under suspicious circumstances 6 months ago after telling Miles he had finally gathered enough proof to bring down the entire corrupt leadership. Sean had been Novatech's chief technology officer. He had been Edith Walsh's right hand, her trusted advisor, her friend. And according to the final message he had left for Miles, he had been the only person in the company who didn't know what the board of directors was really doing, who didn't know about the illegal contracts, the stolen technology, the systematic destruction of anyone who got in their way. Miles looked at his daughter, then at the space where Edith Walsh's daughter had been standing moments before. 2 single parents, 2 people caught in the crossfire of corporate greed. And now, Edith Walsh needed help from the one person in this city who had both the knowledge and the motivation to find her, to save her, to finally expose the truth that Sean had died protecting. He scrolled to a specific file, the one marked Insurance for Miles Only. Inside was a video message, Sean's face gaunt and frightened. Miles had watched it only once, the day after Sean's supposed heart attack. Now he pressed play again, letting the familiar words wash over him. If you're watching this again, something has happened to Edith. They'll come for her eventually. She's the only clean one, Miles. The only one who built Novatech on actual innovation instead of theft and corruption. When they move against her, you have to be ready. You have to save her. Because she's the key to everything, and because she deserves to know the truth about what her company really is. Miles closed the phone, his jaw set with determination. The police were still interviewing witnesses, still processing the scene. They would investigate, but Miles knew how these things went. By the time they navigated bureaucracy and warrants, Edith could be dead. Her daughter could be used as leverage. The evidence could disappear. No, this required someone who operated outside the system, someone with nothing left to lose, someone who knew exactly how deep the corruption ran. Miles Bowen had spent 5 years in the shadows, broken and grieving, working jobs beneath his skill level, raising his daughter alone, waiting for the moment when he could finally strike back at the people who had destroyed his family. That moment had just arrived in an elementary school parking lot, announced by screeching tires and a CEO's terrified eyes. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The police interview took 45 minutes. Miles answered every question with practiced calm, providing details without revealing the depth of his knowledge, cooperating without actually helping them understand what they were really dealing with. Detective Morrison seemed competent enough, taking notes, asking follow-up questions. But Miles could see the man was already categorizing this as a kidnapping for ransom, a crime of opportunity, something that would be resolved through negotiation or tragic failure. Morrison had no idea he was looking at an execution masquerading as an abduction. After the detective finally released him, Miles drove Sophie to his sister's house across town in the Oakmont district. Elena met them at the door, her face creased with worry from the news reports already flooding social media. "Miles, what happened? They're saying you tried to stop them." "I need you to watch Sophie for a few days." Miles kept his voice steady, calm, even as his sister's eyes widened with alarm. "A few days? Miles, what are you planning?" He knelt down, looked his daughter in the eyes. "Sophie, I need to help that lady and her daughter. The people who took them are very bad people, and the police might not be able to find them in time. Do you understand?" Sophie's lower lip trembled, but she nodded. She was too young to fully grasp the danger, but old enough to see the determination in her father's face. "You'll be careful?" "I promise. And Aunt Elena will make you those chocolate chip pancakes you love." He kissed her forehead, held her tight, then stood and faced his sister. "If anything happens to me, there's a safety deposit box at Hillcrest Bank. The key is taped under the false bottom of my desk drawer. Everything Sophie needs to know is in there." "Miles, I have to do this, Elena. These are the same people who killed Rebecca." His sister's face went pale. She knew. She had been there through the aftermath, through the investigation that went nowhere, through the systematic destruction of Miles's reputation when he tried to demand answers. She had watched her brother-in-law be labeled paranoid, obsessed, unstable. She had seen him forced out of his career, seen him retreat into himself, seen him survive only because of Sophie. "Then finish it," Elena said quietly. "Finish it and come home." Miles drove directly to a storage unit on the edge of town, one he had rented under a false name 5 years ago. Inside, past the boxes of old furniture and forgotten belongings, was a locked cabinet. He opened it, revealing the organized chaos of his obsession. File folders labeled with names and dates. Hard drives containing terabytes of encrypted data. Photographs connected by red string like something from a conspiracy theorist's fever dream. Except it wasn't a theory. It was documented fact. Miles had been Novatech's director of cybersecurity, reporting directly to Sean Douglas. He had built their defensive systems from the ground up, had implemented protocols that made Novatech's encryption products the most secure on the market. And in the process, he had discovered that the company's board of directors was using those same systems to hide something else entirely. A parallel operation that stole intellectual property from competitors, that sold encryption backdoors to authoritarian regimes, that eliminated anyone who threatened to expose them. When Miles tried to report it internally, they destroyed him. First subtly, then overtly. They manufactured evidence of security breaches on his watch. They planted suggestions that his wife's death in the Novatech server facility fire had been his fault, that he had disabled safety protocols to run unauthorized tests. They threatened to prosecute him for corporate espionage if he didn't sign a non-disclosure agreement and resign quietly. Miles had refused. He had gone to the police, to lawyers, to journalists, and one by one, every avenue closed. The police investigation stalled. His lawyers suddenly dropped him. Journalists stopped returning calls. Meanwhile, Rebecca's death was ruled accidental. Case closed, no further investigation warranted. Only Sean had believed him. Only Sean had understood that the fire wasn't an accident, that Rebecca had died because she had been in the wrong server room at the wrong time when someone was destroying evidence. And Sean had spent the next 5 years quietly, carefully, gathering proof while rising through the ranks to become CTO, all the while feeding information to Miles in secret. Then 6 months ago, Sean had died. Heart attack, the official report said. 42 years old, no history of heart problems. Found dead in his home office with his computer hard drives mysteriously wiped clean. Miles had known immediately what it meant. Sean had gotten too close. They had eliminated him just like they eliminated Rebecca. But Sean had been prepared. He had left insurance, scattered evidence in multiple locations, and he had left instructions for Miles in that final video message. Wait for them to move against Edith. When they do, everything you need will be in the place we discussed. Miles pulled out his phone, navigated to a secure messaging app, and sent a single word to a dead man's number. Activated. 3 minutes later, his phone buzzed with an automated response, a series of GPS coordinates that led to an address in the Summit Ridge neighborhood. Miles memorized the location, then began gathering equipment. A laptop with forensic software, lockpick tools, a burner phone. Everything he would need to operate off-grid while hunting for Edith Walsh. His own phone buzzed again. News alert. Novatech CEO Edith Walsh and daughter kidnapped outside elementary school. Ransom demand expected within 24 hours. Board of Directors offers $5 million reward for information leading to safe return. Miles read the statement from Reggie Bishop, Novatech's chief financial officer and acting CEO in Edith's absence. It was perfectly crafted, conveying concern and determination, promising the company's full cooperation with law enforcement. To anyone else, it would seem like a caring organization desperate to save their leader. Miles saw it for what it was: theater. Reggie Bishop was one of them, one of the architects of Novatech's shadow operations. He had been there when they destroyed Miles. He had probably been there when they killed Rebecca and Sean. And now he was publicly offering a reward while privately ensuring that Edith Walsh would never be found alive. Because Edith didn't know. That was the crucial detail Sean had emphasized in his message. Edith Walsh had built Novatech on legitimate innovation, on real technology, on genuine breakthroughs in encryption. She had no idea that her board of directors had been using her company as a front for industrial espionage and worse. She was the perfect cover, brilliant and ethical, and completely oblivious to the crimes being committed in her name. And now she had apparently discovered something that made her dangerous enough to eliminate. Miles packed his equipment into a nondescript backpack, locked the storage unit, and headed for Summit Ridge. The coordinates Sean had provided led to a townhouse in a quiet residential area. Miles parked 2 blocks away, approached on foot, picked the lock on the back door with practiced efficiency. Inside, the townhouse was empty, but clearly maintained. Utilities still on, furniture covered with sheets, mail collected but not forwarded. A safe house. Sean had planned for everything. Miles found what he was looking for in the basement, behind a false panel in the wall. A small, fireproof safe with a biometric lock. He pressed his thumb to the scanner, the one Sean had programmed years ago as insurance, and the safe clicked open. Inside were 3 items. A USB drive labeled "Complete Evidence, All Crimes Documented." A burner phone with a single contact saved. And a handwritten note in Sean's familiar scrawl. "Miles, if you're reading this, I'm dead and they've moved against Edith. The USB contains everything: financial records, communications, video evidence of the board ordering Rebecca's death and covering it up. It's enough to put them all in prison for life. But you can't just release it. They own too many people. Police, prosecutors, judges. They've spent years buying influence. If you leak this evidence, it will disappear before anyone can act on it. You need Edith alive. You need her to see what her company really is. And you need her to voluntarily, publicly expose it herself. She's the only one they can't discredit. She's the only one people will believe. The burner phone will receive 1 message at midnight tonight, the location where they're holding her. You'll have a 6-hour window before they move her again. Save her, Miles. Show her the truth and finish what we started. For Rebecca. For both of us." Miles read the note 3 times, then carefully placed everything in his backpack. The weight of it felt significant, final. This was the moment 5 years of grief and rage had been building toward. The moment where he could finally strike back, finally make the people who destroyed his life pay for their crimes. But first, he had to save a woman he had never met. Convince her that everyone she trusted had betrayed her, and somehow persuade her to destroy her own company from the inside. The burner phone sat heavy in his pocket as he left the townhouse, as he drove back across the city, as he waited for midnight and the message that would tell him where to find Edith Walsh. He thought about her daughter, about the terror in that little girl's eyes as she was dragged into the van. He thought about Sophie, safe with Elena for now, but living in a world where companies could murder with impunity, where corruption could flourish unchecked. No more, Miles promised himself. No more silence. No more hiding. Tonight, the truth would begin to surface. And tomorrow, the people who thought themselves untouchable would learn that some debts could never be escaped, that some witnesses could never be silenced, that justice delayed was not justice denied. It was simply justice gathering strength. At 11:47 p.m., Miles sat in his car 3 blocks from police headquarters, laptop open, monitoring encrypted police communications. The official investigation into Edith Walsh's kidnapping was proceeding exactly as he expected. Slowly, bureaucratically, hamstrung by procedure and the assumption that this was a ransom situation requiring delicate negotiation. Detective Morrison had assigned a team, established a command center, and was waiting for the kidnappers to make contact. They would be waiting a long time. This wasn't about money. At exactly midnight, the burner phone buzzed. A text message appeared, nothing but an address. 4732 Blackwood Industrial Drive, Unit 7. Miles knew the area, an abandoned manufacturing district on the eastern edge of the city where Novatech had once maintained a warehouse before consolidating operations. The location was perfect for holding someone. Isolated, no witnesses, plenty of soundproofing from the old factory equipment still inside. Miles started his car, then hesitated. He couldn't do this alone. If he went in there and got killed, the evidence died with him. Edith died. Her daughter died. And the people responsible continued operating with impunity. He needed backup, but he couldn't trust the police. Couldn't trust anyone connected to Novatech's sphere of influence. He pulled out his personal phone, scrolled through contacts he hadn't called in years, and stopped on a name. Jordan Hayes, investigative journalist. They had met during Miles's initial attempts to expose Novatech, back when Jordan was still interested in the story. Eventually, like everyone else, Jordan had stopped returning calls. But Miles had always suspected it wasn't by choice. A journalist with Jordan's instincts wouldn't abandon a story this big unless someone had applied serious pressure. Miles sent a text. "Remember the Novatech story you couldn't publish? I have the CEO and proof of everything. Come alone. I'll send coordinates in 10 minutes if you respond." 3 minutes later, "I'm listening." Miles allowed himself a small smile, then sent the address with a warning. "Park a block away. Come armed if you can. These people kill witnesses." He arrived at Blackwood Industrial Drive at 12:35 a.m. The street was dark, most of the streetlights broken or burned out. The skeletal remains of failed businesses looming like tombstones to economic collapse. Unit 7 was at the end, a large warehouse with loading docks and high windows, several of them glowing with dim interior light. Jordan's car pulled up 5 minutes later, a battered sedan that had seen better days. The journalist emerged looking older than Miles remembered, hair graying at the temples, lines of stress carved deep around the eyes. But those eyes still held the sharp intelligence Miles had respected, still scanned the environment with practiced wariness. "You look terrible," Jordan said by way of greeting. "You should see the other guy." "The other guy has Edith Walsh in its warehouse, Miles. What exactly is your plan here?" Miles opened his backpack, pulled out the laptop and showed Jordan the files Sean had left. Financial records showing millions in stolen IP sales. Email chains discussing Rebecca's death and how to frame it as accidental. Video footage of board meetings where they casually discussed eliminating problems, human problems, with the same tone others might use for quarterly budget reviews. Jordan's face went white in the laptop's glow. "Oh my God, this is everything. This is Pulitzer-level documentation." Sean Douglas spent 5 years collecting it, and they killed him for it. Miles closed the laptop. "But it doesn't matter unless we can connect it to something happening right now, something they can't deny or suppress. That's why we need Edith Walsh alive, aware and willing to go public. So we just walk in there and ask nicely?" Miles pulled out the lockpick set, along with something else, a small device that looked like a phone but wasn't. Sean was paranoid. He installed backdoors in every Novatech facility security system. "This will give us access to their cameras, their locks, their communications. We'll know exactly where they're holding her and how many people are inside." And then we improvise. They approached Unit 7 from the side, using the shadows and debris for cover. Miles activated Sean's device, and his phone screen populated with camera feeds. 6 different angles inside the warehouse. He counted 4 people, 3 men and 1 woman, all armed, all wearing those same interlocking circle tattoos on their wrists. Professional contractors, not random thugs. And there, in a small office at the back, Edith Walsh and her daughter, zip-tied to chairs, both alive but clearly terrified. 4 armed contractors, Jordan whispered. You were serious about coming armed, right? Miles didn't answer. He was focused on the camera feed showing the office where Edith sat. She wasn't crying. Despite the circumstances, despite the zip ties and the armed guards, her face showed calculation, assessment. She was studying her captors, noting details, trying to understand the situation. Even now, even terrified, the analytical mind that had built a tech empire was working, looking for angles, for leverage, for a way out. Miles respected that. It meant she might actually listen when he showed her the truth. He cycled through more camera feeds, mapping the warehouse layout, identifying exits and blind spots. One of the contractors was in the main space, pacing. 2 more were in a break room, playing cards. The 4th, a woman with short dark hair, stood directly outside Edith's office. The one outside the office is the problem, Miles said. She's got clear sight lines, no distractions, professional stance. She's not just hired muscle, she's leadership. Jordan leaned closer to the screen. Wait, I know her. That's Cindy Blake, former Special Operations. Went private sector about 3 years ago. There were rumors she was working for Novatech as off-book security. If she's here, this is sanctioned at the highest levels. Everything clicked into place. Novatech's board hadn't outsourced this. They had used their own shadow security team, which meant they were confident, sloppy, operating with the arrogance of people who believed themselves untouchable. That arrogance would be their mistake. Miles used Sean's device to unlock the side entrance, and they slipped inside, moving through the shadows of the warehouse's main floor. The place smelled of oil and rust, old machinery creating a maze of metal that provided perfect cover. They made it to within 20 feet of the office before Cindy Blake's radio crackled. "Status check," a voice said. Reggie Bishop. Miles recognized it instantly. "All secure," Cindy responded. "Target is compliant, awaiting disposal orders." Disposal, not ransom, not negotiation. They were going to kill Edith and her daughter as soon as whatever they were waiting for was complete. Jordan's hand gripped Miles's arm, fear and fury mixing on the journalist's face. Miles held up a hand, "Wait," and pulled out the laptop again. He navigated to a specific file on Sean's USB, a video recorded 3 weeks before Sean's death. The video showed Sean sitting in a car, face exhausted, voice heavy with resignation. "This is my final insurance policy. Edith, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner, but they threatened my family. They said if I exposed them, my wife and son would have an accident. So I stayed quiet and collected evidence, hoping to find a way to bring them down without sacrificing the people I love. But I was wrong. There is no safe way. They're too powerful, too connected. So I'm leaving this for Miles Bowen, the only person I trust to do what needs to be done. Miles, the woman you're trying to save built Novatech on real innovation. She has no idea that her CFO, her COO, her entire board has been using her company as a front for industrial espionage. They've stolen billions in IP, sold encryption backdoors to hostile governments, and killed at least 7 people who threatened to expose them, including Miles's wife, Rebecca. Edith is the perfect cover, brilliant and ethical, giving them legitimacy while they commit crimes. But she's discovered something, I don't know what yet. But they're planning to eliminate her. When they make their move, you'll have maybe hours to save her. Show her this video. Show her the evidence. Make her understand that the company she built has been corrupted from the inside. and convince her that the only way to stop them is to burn it all down publicly, spectacularly, in a way they can't suppress. It's the only way justice happens. It's the only way my death, Rebecca's death, all of it, means something. The video ended. Miles saved it to his phone, then looked at Jordan. I'm going to create a distraction. When Blake moves to investigate, you get Edith and her daughter out through the loading dock. Don't stop, don't look back, just run. And you? I'll be right behind you. It was a lie, and they both knew it. But Jordan nodded anyway, understanding that some things mattered more than survival, that some truths had to be delivered regardless of cost. Miles moved through the machinery, found the warehouse's electrical panel, and used Sean's device to trigger a controlled shutdown. Lights flickered, alarms blared, and the contractors immediately went on alert. Cindy Blake barked orders, sent 2 men to investigate while she maintained position. Not good enough. Miles needed her to move. He picked up a piece of metal, threw it hard against the far wall. The sound echoed through the warehouse like a gunshot. Cindy's head snapped toward it, and for 3 critical seconds, she hesitated, torn between maintaining position and investigating a potential breach. Professional instinct won. She moved toward the sound, weapon drawn, leaving the office door unguarded. Jordan sprinted from cover, reached the office, used bolt cutters on the zip ties. Edith and her daughter stumbled to their feet, confused, terrified. Jordan put a finger to lips, pointed toward the loading dock, and they ran. Miles watched them disappear into the darkness, then stepped out where Cindy Blake could see him. She spun, weapon rising, recognition flashing across her face. Miles Bowen, you're supposed to be broken. I got better. You should have stayed down. Now you die with her. Maybe. But first, you're going to answer a question. Miles held up his phone, showing the video of Sean. Who gave the order to kill him? Cindy's expression didn't change. Does it matter? You'll be dead in 30 seconds. It matters to me. She smiled, cold and professional. Reggie Bishop, same person who ordered your wife's death. Same person who's going to sleep peacefully tonight while you bleed out in this warehouse. Miles nodded slowly. That's what I needed to hear. Then he pressed a button on Sean's device, and every camera in the warehouse activated, broadcasting live to a server that would automatically upload to multiple news organizations and law enforcement agencies if Miles didn't input a cancellation code within 10 minutes. Cindy's smile vanished. What did you do? I made sure the truth survives, even if I don't. She raised her weapon, but Miles was already moving, diving behind machinery as bullets sparked off metal. He didn't need to fight her. Didn't need to win. He just needed to buy time for Edith to escape, for Jordan to get her somewhere safe, for the evidence to reach people who would actually do something with it. Behind him, sirens began to wail. Someone had called the police, maybe a night watchman, maybe Jordan. It didn't matter. What mattered was that Cindy Blake and her team were now trapped, their operation exposed, their target escaped. Miles ran for the loading dock, bullets chasing him, and thought about Rebecca, about Sean, about all the people who had died for a truth that was finally about to see light. He burst through the door into the cool night air, just as police cruisers screeched into the parking lot, just as Jordan's car roared away with Edith and her daughter inside. Just as the video of Sean's confession began uploading to servers across the internet. And Miles Bowen, broken witness turned reluctant hero, allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, justice was possible after all. Miles made it to the police perimeter with his hands raised, identifying himself as a witness before trigger-happy officers could make assumptions. Detective Morrison recognized him from the school parking lot, confusion and suspicion warring on his face as he took in the scene. Warehouse full of armed contractors, CEO and daughter rescued, and the same civilian who had tried to stop the kidnapping now emerging from what was clearly a tactical operation. "Mr. Bowen, you want to explain what you're doing at an active crime scene?" Miles handed over his phone, the one still streaming warehouse camera feeds. "Saving your investigation about 6 hours of work. The people inside are Novatech Private Security. They were going to kill Edith Walsh and her daughter tonight. Everything you need is being uploaded to a secure server as we speak." Morrison stared at the feeds, watched Cindy Blake and her team being cornered by SWAT, watched the timestamp-verified footage of Edith bound to a chair. "How did you know where to find her?" "That's a longer conversation. Right now, you need to secure those contractors before they can communicate with whoever hired them. And you need to put Reggie Bishop, Novatech's CFO, under immediate surveillance." "You're telling me how to do my job?" "I'm telling you that if you don't move fast, evidence will disappear, witnesses will recant, and this whole thing gets buried under corporate lawyers and political connections." Miles met the detective's eyes. "I've seen it happen before." Something in his tone made Morrison pause. The detective studied Miles with new attention, seeing past the civilian exterior to something harder beneath. "You have law enforcement background?" "Cybersecurity, former director at Novatech before they destroyed my career and killed my wife." Miles said it flatly, without emotion, stating facts. "I spent 5 years collecting evidence. Tonight you're going to get a crash course in corporate corruption that will make your head spin." Morrison looked like he wanted to argue, but the evidence was literally streaming on Miles's phone. He made a call, issued orders for surveillance on Reggie Bishop, then turned back to Miles. "You're not going anywhere until I get a full statement." "Fine. But first, I need to know where Jordan Hayes took Edith Walsh." "The journalist? They're at County General. Mrs. Walsh and her daughter are being checked for injuries." Miles nodded, relieved. Jordan had made the smart play, taking them somewhere public, somewhere with witnesses and security cameras. Somewhere the Novatech board couldn't make them disappear quietly. The statement took 2 hours. Miles laid out everything, starting with his employment at Novatech, Rebecca's death, the systematic cover-up, Sean Douglas's investigation, and the evidence trail leading to tonight's rescue. Morrison's expression progressed from skepticism to shock to grim determination as the scope of the conspiracy became clear. "This is going to be a media nightmare," the detective said finally. "Good. That's the only way it doesn't get buried." By the time Miles left police headquarters, dawn was breaking over the city. His phone had exploded with notifications, news alerts, social media tags. The story was everywhere. Novatech CEO kidnapped, rescued by civilian and journalist, connections to corporate security contractors, questions about board involvement. The narrative was fragmentary, confused, but it was out there, spreading, becoming too big to suppress. Miles drove to County General, found Jordan in the waiting room looking exhausted, but grimly satisfied. "She's asking for you. Wants to know who the hell you are and why you risked your life for her." "How's her daughter?" "Physically fine, emotionally traumatized, but alive. Social services is keeping them separated for now. Standard procedure in kidnapping cases." Miles felt a pang of sympathy. Edith was probably losing her mind, separated from her daughter after that ordeal. He found her in a private room, still in the clothes from yesterday, hair tangled, eyes red from crying but blazing with intensity. "You're Miles Bowen." It wasn't a question. "Yes." "Why did you save me?" "Jordan said you used to work for Novatech, that my company destroyed your life. Why would you help me?" Miles pulled up a chair, sat down heavily. "Because Sean Douglas asked me to. And because despite everything your board of directors has done, you're not one of them." Edith's face crumpled at Sean's name. "He died 6 months ago. Heart attack. He was murdered, same as my wife. Same as at least 5 other people who got too close to the truth about what Novatech really is." Miles pulled out his phone, showed her Sean's video. "You need to watch this." She watched in silence, tears streaming down her face, as her best friend and trusted CTO explained the depth of the betrayal, explained how her life's work had been corrupted, explained that she was the perfect cover for criminals because of her genuine brilliance and ethics. When it ended, Edith sat motionless, staring at nothing. "I built that company," she whispered. "Every innovation, every patent, every breakthrough, that was real. That was mine." "I know. That's why they needed you. That's why they'll do anything to keep you quiet now that you know the truth." Edith looked up sharply. "They won't succeed. I'll expose them. I'll burn it all down if I have to." "That's exactly what we need you to do. But first, you need to understand what you're up against." Miles spent the next hour showing her the evidence Sean had compiled. Financial records proving the board had stolen billions in intellectual property. Communications with foreign governments selling encryption backdoors. Security footage of board meetings where they casually discussed eliminating problems, human problems, with clinical detachment. "Reggie did this," Edith said, staring at an email chain where her CFO discussed framing her for embezzlement. "He was my mentor. I trusted him completely. That's why betrayal works. It requires trust first." A commotion erupted in the hallway. Raised voices, someone demanding access. Miles moved to the door, looked out to see Reggie Bishop himself, flanked by 2 lawyers and hospital security, arguing with the police officer stationed outside Edith's room. "I'm her CFO and acting CEO. I have every right to see her." "This is a crime scene, sir. No unauthorized access." Miles stepped into the hallway. Reggie's eyes locked on him, recognition and fury flashing across his polished features. "You. I should have made sure you were dead 5 years ago." The admission, captured by hallway security cameras, made the lawyers flinch. Reggie realized his mistake immediately, tried to backtrack. That is, what I meant to say." "You meant exactly what you said." Edith appeared behind Miles, her voice cold and clear. "You killed Rebecca Bowen. You killed Sean Douglas. You tried to kill me. And you just confessed in front of witnesses." Reggie's composure shattered. "You don't understand what you're interfering with. The board will. The board is going to prison, and I'm going to make sure every single employee, every investor, every person you lied to knows exactly what Novatech became under your leadership. You'll destroy the company. Thousands of jobs. You already destroyed it. I'm just cleaning up the corpse." The lawyers were pulling Reggie back, damage control instincts overriding everything else. But the confrontation had been recorded, would be part of the official record, another piece of evidence in a case that was rapidly becoming airtight. As Reggie was escorted away, still protesting, Miles turned to find hospital staff and patients filming on their phones. The hallway confrontation was already being uploaded, shared, going viral. Within minutes, it would be everywhere. Edith Walsh confronting her would-be killer, refusing to back down, promising justice. "That was incredibly dangerous," Miles said quietly. "Good. I'm done being careful. I'm done trusting the wrong people. Edith turned to him. Jordan told me about your daughter, that you left her with your sister to come save me. Why would you take that risk? Miles thought about Sophie, about the world he wanted her to grow up in. Because the alternative is letting them win, letting them kill with impunity. I couldn't do that anymore. Then help me finish this. Help me expose every single crime, every cover-up, everything. I want the truth so public, so undeniable, that no lawyer or politician can make it disappear. That's going to require access to Novatech systems, physical evidence, witnesses willing to testify. I'm still CEO. I still have access codes, administrative privileges, knowledge of where bodies are buried. Edith's expression hardened. And I know exactly where Sean kept his insurance files, the ones beyond what he gave you, the complete documentation, everything. Miles felt a surge of hope. Where? The main data center. Server rack 14, hidden partition. He showed me once, said if anything ever happened to him, I should know where to look. She paused. I thought he was being paranoid. I didn't understand. He was protecting you, giving you plausible deniability. Well, I don't want deniability anymore. I want justice. Edith grabbed her phone, started making calls. I'm organizing a press conference for tomorrow morning. Every major outlet broadcast live. And I'm going to tell them everything. The board will try to stop you, legally, physically, whatever it takes. Let them try. I have the truth, I have evidence, and I have nothing left to lose. She met his eyes. Sound familiar? Miles smiled grimly. Very. Outside the hospital, news vans were already gathering. Social media was exploding with speculation and outrage. The story had taken on a life of its own, fed by Edith's hallway confrontation, by the dramatic rescue, by years of carefully maintained corporate image crumbling in real time. And in a penthouse office across the city, Reggie Bishop and the remaining Novatech board members gathered in emergency session, watching their carefully constructed empire begin to collapse, realizing that sometimes the truth refused to stay buried, that sometimes witnesses refused to stay silent, that justice delayed could suddenly arrive with devastating force. The war had begun, and this time the good guys had both evidence and righteous fury on their side. Morning brought chaos. Miles left the hospital with Jordan to retrieve Sophie from his sister's house, needing to see his daughter, to assure himself she was safe before the situation escalated further. Elena met them at the door, Sophie peering around her aunt's legs with worried eyes. Daddy. She ran to him, and Miles scooped her up, held her tight, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. I'm okay, sweetheart. Everything's okay. The news says you're a hero. They showed you on TV. Miles exchanged a glance with Elena over Sophie's head. His sister's expression was complex. Pride mixed with fear, mixed with the understanding that their lives were about to become very complicated, very quickly. Can we talk? Elena led them to the kitchen, while Sophie settled in the living room with cartoons. Miles, there are reporters outside my building. They want interviews, want to know about you, about Sophie. This is getting out of control. I know. I'm sorry. I never meant to drag you into this. You're not dragging us anywhere. We're family. But you need to think about Sophie's safety. If these people killed your wife, killed Sean Douglas, what's to stop them from... She couldn't finish the sentence. Jordan spoke up. I've arranged a safe location. Small apartment, registered under a shell company, completely off the grid. You and Sophie can stay there until this is resolved. How long will that take? Elena asked. Miles wished he had a good answer. The press conference is tomorrow morning. Once Edith goes public with everything, the board's options become limited. They can't disappear us without making themselves look guilty. Unless they don't care about looking guilty anymore, Jordan said grimly. Desperate people make desperate choices. We need to assume they'll try something. A knock at the door made everyone freeze. Elena checked the peephole, relaxed slightly. Detective Morrison. The detective entered looking like he hadn't slept, which he probably hadn't. Mr. Bowen, we need to talk, privately. They moved to the kitchen while Elena stayed with Sophie. Morrison pulled out a tablet, showed Miles a series of photographs. Crime scene images, a body in an expensive suit, face frozen in death. Reggie Bishop, found dead in his penthouse 3 hours ago. Single gunshot wound to the head, weapon at the scene. Preliminary ruling is suicide. Miles stared at the image, felt something cold settle in his stomach. It wasn't suicide. I agree. But that's the official narrative, and it's going to stick unless we can prove otherwise. Morrison swiped to another image, this one showing a handwritten note. Confession letter. Says he orchestrated the kidnapping, admits to financial crimes, takes sole responsibility for everything. Very convenient. Very fabricated, Jordan said, reading over Miles's shoulder. Problem is, handwriting matches, fingerprints match, everything technically checks out. If I push the suicide angle, I'll get shut down by people above my pay grade. Morrison looked at Miles. You said there were other board members involved. Now they're cleaning house, eliminating anyone who could testify against them. Cindy Blake and her team? Lawyered up, not talking. And without Reggie to implicate them, their connection to the kidnapping becomes circumstantial. Miles felt the familiar weight of injustice, the sensation of watching criminals escape through technicalities and corruption. But this time, he had leverage. What about the evidence Sean compiled? The financial records, the communications? Defense will argue it was all Reggie, acting alone, maybe with Sean's help before Sean developed a conscience. They'll paint Edith Walsh as a victim of her CFO's crimes, offer her a settlement, and walk away clean. Unless Edith refuses to play along, Miles said. Unless she goes public with everything before they can control the narrative. Morrison nodded slowly. The press conference, you're really going through with it? Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., Novatech headquarters lobby. Every outlet that wants a camera there is invited. It's risky. The remaining board members will do anything to stop her. That's why we need police protection. For Edith, for her daughter, for anyone involved in exposing this. Morrison was quiet for a long moment, clearly weighing career implications against conscience. Finally, he said, I'll make it happen. Protective detail, secure transport, the works. But after tomorrow, this goes federal. The crimes you're describing cross state lines, involve international contracts. Local PD won't be enough. We just need to survive until tomorrow. After that, it's out in the open. After Morrison left, Miles gathered Sophie and explained they were going to stay somewhere new for a few days, an adventure, just until some grown-up problems got solved. She took it with the resilience of a kid who had already learned that life was unpredictable, that sometimes Daddy had to do hard things, that flexibility was survival. Jordan drove them to the safe apartment, a modest 2-bedroom in a nondescript building downtown. Miles did a security sweep while Sophie explored, claiming the smaller bedroom as hers, already making plans for where her stuffed animals would go. She's amazing, Jordan observed, watching through the doorway as Sophie arranged her backpack contents with careful precision. She's had to be. After Rebecca died, it was just us. She learned to adapt. You raised her alone? Didn't have a choice. Rebecca's family blamed me for her death, cut off all contact. My parents are gone. It was just me and Sophie against the world. Miles smiled faintly. Turns out, that's enough. His phone buzzed. Text from Edith. Need to see you. Can you come to the police safe house? Bringing my daughter. Miles left Sophie with Jordan, who promised movies and takeout, and drove across town to where Edith was being kept under protective custody. The safe house was a converted apartment building, officers stationed at every entrance, security cameras covering every angle. Edith met him in a secure conference room, her daughter sitting beside her, small hand gripping her mother's tightly. The girl was maybe 6 years old, dark hair like Edith's, eyes still showing the trauma of the kidnapping, but also displaying her mother's fierce intelligence. Miles, this is my daughter, Zoe. Zoe, this is the man who saved us. Zoe studied him with serious eyes. You jumped on the van. I did. That was very brave and very stupid. Miles laughed despite himself. You're absolutely right. It was both. Edith smiled, the first genuine warmth Miles had seen from her. She gets her directness from me, among other things. The smile faded. I asked you here because I need you to understand something. Tomorrow, when I do this press conference, I'm not just exposing crimes. I'm destroying the company I built, everything I've worked for, everything I've achieved. It's all going to be associated with corruption and death. I know. But more than that, I'm putting Zoe at risk. The board members still free, they're desperate. They might try to use her as leverage, might try to hurt her to keep me quiet. Edith's voice broke slightly. I need to know I'm making the right choice, that exposing the truth is worth the danger. Miles thought about Rebecca, about the choice she never got to make, about the years he had spent paralyzed by fear and grief. 5 years ago, I stayed silent because I was afraid. I convinced myself that protecting Sophie meant not fighting back, that keeping my head down would keep her safe. But all it did was let the people who killed my wife keep killing. They went after Sean. They went after you. And they would have kept going, finding new victims, destroying new lives. Because that's what unchecked power does. He met Edith's eyes. You're not putting Zoe at risk by speaking up. You're protecting her by making sure she grows up in a world where the truth matters, where criminals face consequences, where power doesn't make you untouchable. That's the world she deserves. That's the world they both deserve. Edith was crying silently, and Zoe reached up to wipe her mother's tears with small hands. It's okay, Mommy. We're brave, remember? Like the princesses in the stories, the ones who fight dragons. Yes, baby. We're brave. Edith pulled her daughter close, then looked at Miles. Tomorrow morning. No backing down, no compromises. We tell the whole truth. The whole truth, Miles agreed. He stayed with them for another hour, going over the evidence again, preparing Edith for the questions she would face, the accusations the board's lawyers would throw at her. Jordan joined them via video call, outlining media strategy, identifying sympathetic journalists who could be trusted to tell the story accurately. As they worked, Miles watched Zoe color at the conference table, watched her, periodically checked to make sure her mother was still there, still safe. He thought about Sophie doing the same thing, about all the daughters and sons who deserved better than a world where corporations could kill with impunity. When he finally left the safe house, night had fallen. Miles drove back to the apartment where Jordan and Sophie were watching animated movies. His daughter curled up on the couch with a blanket, safe and content and blissfully unaware of the storm about to break. Jordan followed him into the kitchen. You ready for tomorrow? No. But we're doing it anyway. Edith is strong. She'll handle the pressure. It's not Edith I'm worried about. It's the board's response. They've already killed Reggie to tie up loose ends. They're cornered, desperate, dangerous. Morrison promised protection. Protection didn't save Rebecca. Didn't save Sean. Miles leaned against the counter, exhaustion finally catching up with him. I keep thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. All the ways they could hurt the people I care about. Jordan put a hand on his shoulder. Then we make sure it goes right. We survive tomorrow. We get the truth out. And we make damn sure that Rebecca and Sean didn't die for nothing. Miles nodded, drawing strength from the journalist's conviction. Tomorrow would be the culmination of 5 years of grief and rage and careful planning. Tomorrow, the whole city would learn what Novatech really was. Tomorrow, justice would finally have its day. He just had to make sure they all survived long enough to see it. At 2 a.m., unable to sleep, Miles sat at the apartment's small dining table with his laptop open, going through Sean's evidence files one more time. He had reviewed them dozens of times over the past months. But now, with the press conference hours away, he needed to be certain. Needed to understand every connection, every crime, every piece of the conspiracy that had consumed so many lives. Jordan emerged from the guest room, equally sleepless. Find something new? Not new, just more complete? Miles turned the screen so Jordan could see. Sean was meticulous. Every crime is documented with multiple sources. Financial records cross-referenced with email communications, security footage time-stamped to match transaction logs. It's not just evidence, it's a prosecution roadmap. Walk me through it. I want to make sure I understand the full scope for tomorrow's coverage. Miles pulled up the first file. It starts 10 years ago, shortly after Edith founded Novatech. The company was legitimate then, real innovations in encryption technology. But the board of directors, specifically Reggie Bishop and Hunter Tate, saw an opportunity. They started selling backdoor access to the encryption systems to foreign governments and corporations. How much money are we talking? Conservatively, $2 billion over 10 years. The payments were routed through shell companies, offshore accounts, made to look like legitimate consulting fees. But Sean tracked every transaction, matched them to specific backdoor implementations, even found the communications where board members discussed which governments to prioritize. Jordan whistled low. That's espionage-level crime. It gets worse. 5 years ago, a Novatech engineer named Anthony White discovered the backdoors. He tried to report it internally, went to Reggie with his findings. Miles pulled up a video file. Sean had security footage from that meeting. The video showed a conference room, Anthony White presenting evidence to Reggie Bishop, clearly agitated, clearly convinced he was doing the right thing by reporting corporate malfeasance. Reggie listened calmly, nodded in all the right places, thanked Anthony for his diligence. 2 days later, Anthony White died in a car accident. Brake failure. Investigation ruled it mechanical failure, no foul play suspected. Except Sean found maintenance records showing the car had been serviced the day before the accident. Brakes were inspected and certified. He also found security footage of a Novatech contractor accessing the parking garage where Anthony kept his car right around the time the brakes would have been compromised. They murdered him for trying to do the right thing. And they perfected the method. Over the next 5 years, 7 more people died under suspicious circumstances. All of them had discovered something about Novatech's operations. All of them died in ways that could be explained as accidents or natural causes. Heart attacks, car crashes, house fires. Miles pulled up another file, this one showing a detailed timeline, each death marked with a red dot, connected to the discovery that had triggered it. Rebecca's name appeared 3 years into the timeline, her death connected to safety protocol violations in the server facility. Rebecca was auditing the facility security when she found evidence that someone had deliberately disabled fire suppression systems in one specific server room, the room where Sean kept his backup evidence. She reported it to maintenance, flagged it as a critical safety issue. 2 days later, that same server room caught fire. Rebecca was inside trying to manually activate suppression systems. Miles's voice remained steady, clinical, but Jordan could see the cost of that control. The fire was ruled accidental, faulty wiring. Her death was ruled workplace tragedy. But Sean knew better. Sean knew because he had helped Rebecca with the audit. He knew she had found the disabled suppression systems. And he knew that 2 days before the fire, Reggie Bishop had personally accessed that server room, supposedly for routine inspection. Miles showed the security log. Reggie had no reason to be there. He wasn't technical, didn't normally inspect facilities. But he went in, stayed for 20 minutes, and left. The fire started exactly where Rebecca had found the disabled safety systems. Jordan studied them all. Timeline, the pattern of deaths, the systematic elimination of threats. This is serial murder disguised as corporate risk management. That's exactly what it is. And the pattern continues. Sean himself was eliminated 6 months ago when he got close to having enough evidence to go public. Official cause, heart attack. But look at this. Miles pulled up medical records, toxicology reports. Sean was healthy. No heart disease, no family history. But the toxicology found elevated potassium levels, which can indicate natural death or indicate a specific type of poisoning that mimics heart attack symptoms. Did you tell Morrison about this? I did. He's requesting exhumation and re-examination. But even if it confirms poisoning, proving who administered it is nearly impossible. Miles closed the file. That's the genius of their method. Individual cases look like accidents or natural causes. It's only when you see the pattern, when you connect all the deaths to their discoveries, that the truth becomes obvious. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of systematic murder hanging heavy between them. Then Jordan asked, "What about the kidnapping? How does that fit the pattern?" Miles pulled up a new file. Edith discovered something. I'm still not sure what, but 3 weeks ago she requested access to archived financial records from the company's early years. Records that should have been routine, but that apparently contained something important enough to trigger the board's response. Sean mentioned in his video that Edith had discovered something. Right. And look at the timing. She requested the records on a Tuesday. By Friday, the board had emergency meetings. The following Monday, Cindy Blake and her team were contracted for a special project. No details in the official records. And yesterday, they executed the kidnapping. They were planning to make it look like a ransom situation gone wrong. Kill her and her daughter, blame it on kidnappers, express corporate sorrow, and move on. Exactly. Except we interrupted that plan. Miles showed Jordan a new document. This one a detailed organizational chart of Novatech's board of directors. With Reggie dead, supposedly by suicide, that leaves 4 board members still active. Hunter Tate, Chief Operating Officer. Ella White, Chief Legal Officer. Logan Martinez, Chief Innovation Officer. And Easton Brooks, Head of Strategic Partnerships. All of them involved? According to Sean's evidence, yes. All 4 participated in the backdoor sales. All 4 benefited financially from the arrangements. And all 4 attended meetings where the elimination of threats was discussed, sometimes explicitly, sometimes in corporate euphemisms, but always with the same result. People died. Jordan leaned back, processing the scope of it. This is going to be the biggest corporate crime story in a decade, maybe longer. Only if we can get Edith through tomorrow's press conference alive. Once she goes public, their options narrow significantly, but until then, they're going to throw everything at stopping her. As if summoned by the conversation, Miles's phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "You're making a mistake. Walk away now. Think about your daughter." Miles showed it to Jordan, who immediately pulled out their own phone. "That's a direct threat. We need to tell Morrison." "Won't matter. Burner phone, untraceable, plausible deniability. They're probing, seeing if intimidation works." Miles deleted the message. "It won't." Another text arrived, this one with an attachment. Miles opened it, felt his blood run cold. It was a photo of Sophie, taken today through the apartment window, playing in the living room, completely unaware she was being watched. "They found us." Jordan was already moving toward the bedroom where Sophie slept. "We need to move. Now." Miles was calling Morrison even as he grabbed their bags. Woke Sophie gently, explained they were going on another adventure, sweetheart, right now. No time to pack everything. His daughter, bless her, didn't argue. Just grabbed her favorite stuffed animal and let him carry her to Jordan's car. They were pulling out of the underground garage when Morrison called back. "I'm sending units to your location. Stay where you are." "Too late. They've already found us. We're moving to a new location." "Where?" Miles made a decision. Novatech headquarters. The data center Edith mentioned, where Sean kept his complete files. If they want to stop us, they'll have to do it in their own building, on their own security cameras, with dozens of night shift employees as witnesses. That's insane. You'll be walking right into their territory. Exactly. It's the last place they'll expect us to go. And it's where the evidence is. We get Sean's complete files, we bring everything to the press conference, and we make it impossible for them to claim ignorance or limited involvement. Morrison swore creatively. "You're going to get yourself killed." "Maybe. But at least the truth dies with me on camera, not quietly in some staged accident." Miles glanced at Sophie in the back seat, asleep again with the resilience of youth. "Send units to Novatech. Tell them to stay visible. I want the board to know they're being watched." He hung up, drove through empty streets toward the gleaming Novatech tower downtown. Jordan sat silent beside him, equally aware of how dangerous this was, equally committed to seeing it through. "You know they'll have security waiting," Jordan finally said. "I'm counting on it. I still have access codes from my time as director. Sean never had them revoked, kept them active as insurance. I can get us into the data center. And if the codes have been changed? Then we improvise." They parked in the public garage, used the pedestrian entrance to avoid the main lobby. At 3 a.m., the building was mostly empty. Just night shift maintenance and security. Miles used his old badge, prayed the system hadn't flagged it. The light turned green. They were in. Jordan carried Sophie while Miles led them through familiar corridors, muscle memory guiding him to the data center sublevel. His badge worked on the elevator, worked on the sublevel door, kept working as they descended into the climate-controlled realm of servers and backup systems. Server rack 14 was exactly where Edith said it would be. Miles accessed the terminal, input the credentials Sean had given him years ago, watched the hidden partition unlock. Inside was everything, complete financial records going back to Novatech's founding, communications between board members discussing crimes with casual brutality, Video evidence of meetings where murder was authorized with the same tone others might use for approving office supplies. "This is it," Miles breathed, beginning the download to an external drive. "This is everything Sean collected, everything they killed him to hide." The download would take 15 minutes. Miles set Sophie down on a chair, let her sleep while he and Jordan reviewed files, confirming that everything was there, that it was complete and damning beyond any possible defense. "They can't survive this," Jordan said, watching video of Reggie Bishop explicitly ordering Rebecca's death. "No lawyer, no judge they've bought, no politician they've bribed can make this disappear. That's why they'll try to make us disappear instead." As if on cue, the data center door opened. Cindy Blake walked in, no longer pretending to be in custody, no longer operating under cover of law. She had a weapon, but didn't raise it, just studied Miles with professional assessment. "You should have stayed broken, Bowen. Would have lived longer. Maybe. But I would have died a coward." Miles positioned himself between Cindy and Sophie. "You here to kill us?" "Here to offer you a choice. Walk away. Take your daughter. We'll wire you 10 million, set you up anywhere in the world. You get to live, raise your kid, forget any of this happened." "And if I refuse?" Cindy's expression didn't change. "Then you join your wife, and Jordan joins Sean, and your daughter grows up in foster care, never knowing what really happened to her father." Miles looked at Jordan, saw the journalist's face set with determination. Looked at Sophie, sleeping peacefully, trusting that Daddy would keep her safe. Looked back at Cindy Blake and the weapon she hadn't raised, but could in an instant. "Here's my counteroffer," Miles said quietly. "You put down the weapon, you turn yourself in, you testify against the remaining board members. You do that and maybe you serve 20 years instead of life." Cindy laughed, no humor in it. "You think you're in a position to negotiate?" "I think I'm in a position to tell you that this entire conversation is being recorded and broadcast to Detective Morrison's phone. I think the download you're watching includes evidence of your direct involvement in 3 murders. And I think that if you kill us, it happens on Novatech security cameras that are currently being monitored by federal agents Morrison called in as backup." Cindy's eyes flicked to the camera in the corner, to Miles's phone propped against the server rack, to the steady progression of the download bar. "You're bluffing." "Am I? Check the hallway. Count the federal badges that arrived in the last 5 minutes." She didn't move, but something in her posture shifted. Recognition that maybe, just maybe, she had walked into a trap instead of setting one. The download finished. Miles pocketed the drive, picked up Sophie, and walked toward the door. "Last chance, Blake. Turn yourself in, make a deal, or go down with the board you killed for." He walked past her, every second expecting the shot, expecting the end. But it didn't come. Cindy Blake stood frozen, professional calculation fighting survival instinct, and by the time she decided, Miles and Jordan were already in the elevator, already ascending toward the lobby where Morrison and a dozen federal agents were waiting. They had the evidence. They had survived the night. And in 6 hours, the whole world would learn the truth about Novatech and the people who had turned innovation into industry of death. Justice, Miles thought, carrying his sleeping daughter into the dawn, was finally within reach. The press conference was scheduled for 9 a.m. in Novatech's main lobby. By 8:30, the space was packed with journalists, cameras, employees who had arrived early, and curious onlookers who had followed the story's explosive development. Miles stood in a side office with Edith, reviewing the final presentation one more time, while Sophie and Zoe sat together, coloring pictures under Jordan's watchful eye. Detective Morrison appeared at the door. We have a problem. Hunter Tate is demanding to speak before Edith makes any statement. Says he has information that will clarify everything. Edith's jaw tightened. Hunter was my mentor. He recruited me out of graduate school, helped me start Novatech, guided me through every major decision. If he's involved, he's more than involved, Miles said, pulling up a specific file from Sean's evidence. He's the architect. Reggie was the money man, but Hunter designed the entire operation. He showed her a video time-stamped from 8 years ago. Hunter Tate in a conference room with the other board members, presenting what he called a revolutionary business model. On the screen behind him was a detailed plan for selling encryption backdoors, eliminating competitive threats, and maintaining plausible deniability through compartmentalization. The key, Hunter said in the video, his voice calm and professional, is keeping Edith focused on legitimate innovation. She's brilliant, ethical, exactly the face we need. While she develops real technology, we monetize it in ways she'll never know about. And if anyone threatens to expose us, we handle it quietly, permanently, with methods that don't trace back to the company. Edith watched her mentor, the man she had trusted absolutely, casually discuss murder as a business strategy. Her face went pale, then flushed with fury. He used me. Everything I built, every innovation, every patent, he turned it into a weapon. Not just used, Miles said gently. Protected. Look at this. He showed another file, this one containing emails between Hunter and the other board members discussing how to shield Edith from knowledge of their operations. He genuinely cares about you, in his own twisted way. He saw you as a valuable asset worth preserving. That doesn't make it better. That makes it worse. Morrison cleared his throat. He's waiting in the main conference room. Says he won't leave until you hear him out. Edith stood, her expression hardening into something Miles recognized from his own mirror after Rebecca died. The look of someone who had just discovered they'd been living a lie. Then let's hear what he has to say. They found Hunter Tate in the glass-walled conference room overlooking the lobby, watching the assembled press with calculated assessment. He turned as Edith entered, his face softening with what appeared to be genuine affection. Edith, thank God. I've been trying to reach you. This whole situation with Reggie, it's spiraled out of control. But we can fix it. Together. Fix it? Edith's voice was ice. Like you fixed Rebecca Bowen? Like you fixed Sean Douglas? Hunter's expression flickered, mask slipping for just a moment. I don't know what lies you've been told. I've seen the evidence, all of it. Sean documented everything before you had him killed. Sean had a heart attack. Tragic, yes, but natural causes. Stop. Edith slammed her hand on the table. Stop lying. Stop pretending. I know everything. The back doors, the stolen IP, the systematic murder of anyone who threatened your operation. And I know you orchestrated all of it. Hunter was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. Then something shifted in his demeanor, the facade of the concerned mentor falling away to reveal something colder beneath. You were never supposed to know. I built this entire structure to protect you from this knowledge. Protect me? You used me as cover for mass murder. I used your brilliance to build an empire. Everything you created, I made profitable beyond your wildest imagination. The encryption systems you designed are protecting governments, corporations, millions of people. That they also serve our interests is just good business. Miles spoke up from the doorway. And the 7 people you killed? Was that good business too? Hunter's eyes shifted to him, recognition and contempt mixing. Miles Bowen, You should have taken the money 5 years ago. Your wife died in an unfortunate accident. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't an accident. You ordered the fire to destroy Sean's evidence. Rebecca was collateral damage. She was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Regrettable, but necessary. Hunter said it without emotion, stating facts. Just like Sean became necessary to eliminate when he couldn't be controlled. Just like you would have been necessary if you had continued pushing. Edith stared at her mentor with horror and recognition. You're a sociopath. All these years I thought you cared about innovation, about building something meaningful, but you only cared about power and profit. I care about both. They're not mutually exclusive. Hunter leaned back, casual despite the accusations. And I care about you, Edith. Which is why I'm offering you the same choice I offered Sean before he made the wrong decision. Walk away. Keep your company, your reputation, your daughter. We'll restructure, phase out the problematic operations, and move forward clean. And if I refuse? Hunter's smile didn't reach his eyes. Then you join the others who made that same choice. And Zoe grows up believing her mother died in a tragic accident, just like Rebecca's daughter believes about her mother. The threat was explicit, undeniable, captured by the security camera Miles had deliberately positioned to record the conversation. Hunter had just confessed to multiple murders and threatened a 7-year-old girl, all while believing he was negotiating from a position of strength. Miles pulled out his phone, showed Hunter the screen where the conversation was being live-streamed to Morrison's entire team, to federal prosecutors, to the assembled press 1 floor below. Every word, recorded and broadcast. You just confessed to everything. Hunter's face went white, then red with fury. He lunged for Miles, but Morrison and 2 federal agents were already coming through the door, weapons drawn, commands sharp and clear. Hunter Tate, architect of a decade-long criminal conspiracy, was placed in handcuffs while cameras in the lobby below captured his perp walk in real time. Edith watched her mentor being led away, tears streaming down her face. Not tears of sadness, Miles realized, but tears of rage and betrayal and grief for the person she thought Hunter had been, the mentor who had never actually existed. I'm sorry, Miles said quietly. Don't be. You showed me the truth. That's all anyone can ask for. She wiped her eyes, straightened her shoulders, and looked at the lobby full of press. Let's finish this. The press conference began with Edith standing at a podium, cameras broadcasting live to millions, telling the truth about Novatech in clear, unflinching detail. She detailed the back doors, the stolen IP, the systematic murders. She showed Sean's video, played Hunter's confession, displayed financial records that proved billions in illegal transactions. Halfway through her presentation, the remaining board members made their move. Ella White, chief legal officer, stood up in the crowd and demanded the floor. This is slander. Mrs. Walsh is clearly suffering from trauma-induced delusions following her kidnapping. None of these allegations have been verified. They've been verified by federal investigators. Morrison interrupted from the side. We've been building a parallel case for 3 months based on anonymous tips. Mrs. Walsh's evidence confirms what we already suspected. Ella's composure cracked. You have no authority to investigate. We have every authority. And as of 10 minutes ago, we have warrants for your arrest, along with Logan Martinez and Easton Brooks. The 2 other board members tried to leave through the back exits, only to find federal agents waiting. The arrests happened live on camera, broadcast to the world. 3 more members of Novatech's board being led away in handcuffs while their corporate empire collapsed in real time. But Ella White wasn't finished. She pulled out a small device from her jacket, held it up for the cameras. "You think you've won? This is a dead man switch, connected to explosives in the building's foundation. You arrest me, I release this button, and everyone in this lobby dies." The room erupted in panic. People scrambled for exits, cameras kept rolling, and federal agents froze, unwilling to risk the threat being real. Miles saw the calculation in Ella's eyes, the desperate gambit of someone with nothing left to lose. "You're bluffing," Edith said, her voice carrying over the chaos. "There are no explosives. You're a lawyer, not a demolitions expert. This is just another manipulation. Try me. Come one step closer and find out." Miles studied the device, recognized it from his cybersecurity days. It wasn't a dead man's switch. It was a network jammer, designed to block communications. Ella was trying to cut off the broadcast, stop the evidence from spreading further. She was dangerous, yes, but not in the way she claimed. He moved before conscious thought, crossed the distance in 3 strides, grabbed Ella's wrist and twisted. The device fell. Miles caught it before it hit the ground, held it up for the cameras. It's a jammer. She was trying to cut the broadcast. Federal agents swarmed Ella, forced her to the ground, handcuffed her while she screamed threats and accusations. Miles handed the device to Morrison, then turned to find Sophie standing near the podium, eyes wide with fear. He scooped her up immediately. "It's okay, sweetheart. It's over. We're safe." That lady was scary. She was. But she can't hurt anyone anymore. Edith had retrieved Zoe as well, holding her daughter close while the federal agents cleared the room of the arrested board members. The press conference had devolved into chaos, but the evidence had been presented, the confessions recorded, the truth made public and undeniable. Jordan approached with a laptop showing social media feeds. The story was everywhere, trending on every platform, news organizations picking up the live stream and broadcasting it globally. Novatech's stock had been halted, trading suspended pending investigation. The company Edith had built was finished, destroyed by the corruption that had infected it from within. "How do you feel?" Miles asked her. Edith looked around the lobby, at the space where she had once commanded respect and authority, now a crime scene being processed by federal investigators. "Free," she said finally. "For the first time in years, I feel free." Within hours, the reversal was complete. Social media exploded with support for Edith, condemnation for the board members who had betrayed her. Novatech employees who had initially been shocked and confused by the allegations now posted apologies, shared their own stories of suspicious incidents they had witnessed, contributed to the growing wave of accountability. One employee, a junior engineer who had worked directly under Sean Douglas, posted a tearful video. "I knew something was wrong when Sean died. He was healthy, happy, working on something important. His death never made sense. I'm sorry I didn't speak up. I'm sorry I doubted Mrs. Walsh when she needed support. The truth matters, and I should have fought for it." The video went viral, spawned thousands of similar confessions from employees, contractors, even competitors who had suspected Novatech's corruption but lacked proof. The tide of public opinion shifted so completely that by evening, Edith Walsh was being hailed as a hero for exposing her own company's crimes. But the real surprise came from an unexpected source. Cindy Blake, the security contractor who had held Edith at gunpoint just days ago, walked into Morrison's office with her lawyer and offered to turn state's evidence. She detailed every operation she had conducted for Novatech, every threat she had delivered, every crime she had witnessed. "Why the change of heart?" Morrison asked. Cindy looked tired, older than her years. Because Miles Bowen was right. I can serve 20 years and maybe have a life after. Or I can die in prison defending people who would sell me out the moment it benefited them. Hunter already tried to pin Rebecca Bowen's death on me. Said I acted without authorization. I'm done being their weapon. Her testimony filled in the remaining gaps, provided eyewitness accounts of conversations where murders were ordered, confirmed the systematic nature of the conspiracy. With Cindy's cooperation, the federal case became airtight, impossible to fight, guaranteed to result in convictions. Miles watched the news coverage from Jordan's apartment, Sophie asleep on the couch beside him. The journalist sat nearby, typing furiously, filing the story that would define both their careers. "You did it," Jordan said without looking up from the laptop. "You actually took down an entire corporate conspiracy. We did it. You, me, Edith, Sean, even Rebecca in her way. All of us together. Sean would be proud. Rebecca would be furious it took so long." Jordan smiled at that, understanding the complicated grief of loving someone who died for truth you were still fighting to expose. "What happens now? After the trials, after the convictions?" Miles looked at Sophie, thought about the life he wanted to give her. "Now we heal. We rebuild. We make sure this never happens again." His phone buzzed. Text from Edith. "Thank you. For everything. For believing in me when no one else did. For saving my daughter. For making Sean's sacrifice mean something. I'll never forget what you did." Miles responded simply. Justice needed all of us. The truth needed all of us. That's what Sean understood. That's what makes it matter. 3 months later, Miles stood in the lobby of what used to be Novatech headquarters, watching movers clear out the last of the equipment. The company had been dissolved, its assets liquidated, the proceeds going to victims' families and legal fees. The building itself had been sold to a nonprofit focused on corporate accountability and whistleblower protection. Edith found him there, Zoe holding her hand. "Saying goodbye?" "Something like that. I spent the best and worst years of my career in this building. Hard to let go completely." "I know what you mean." Edith looked around the empty space. "I built my dreams here. They were corrupted, stolen, turned into nightmares. But they started as dreams. What will you do now?" "Start over. I've been offered positions at 3 different companies, consulting roles that would pay well and keep me in the industry." She paused. "I'm turning them all down. Taking time with Zoe. Maybe teaching, mentoring the next generation of engineers and teaching them how to protect their innovations from corruption." "That sounds perfect." Edith smiled, then became serious. "I want to offer you something. Not a job exactly, but a partnership. I'm starting a foundation in Sean and Rebecca's names, dedicated to supporting whistleblowers, protecting people who expose corporate crime. I want you to help run it." Miles was surprised, honored, and uncertain all at once. "I appreciate the offer, but I'm not sure I'm qualified." "You're exactly qualified. You lived it. You survived it. You know what whistleblowers face and what they need to succeed. Please, at least consider it." Before Miles could respond, Sophie and Zoe ran up from where they had been exploring the empty building. The 2 girls had become inseparable over the past months, bonded by shared trauma and the resilience of youth. "Dad, can Zoe come over for dinner tonight?" Sophie asked. "If her mom says it's okay." Zoe looked up at Edith with pleading eyes. "Can I, Mom? Please?" Edith laughed. "Only if Miles doesn't mind cooking for one more." "I never mind." Miles met Edith's eyes over the girls' heads, saw warmth there, The beginning of something beyond shared trauma, beyond professional respect. They walked out of the building together, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the empty parking lot. Jordan was waiting by the car, camera in hand, documenting the final chapter of the story that had consumed all their lives. "One last question for the article," Jordan called out. "What's next for the heroes of the Novatex scandal?" Sophie answered before anyone else could. "We're going to get pizza and watch movies. Dad promised." The adults laughed, the tension of months finally breaking into something like joy. They had survived. They had won. The people who killed Rebecca and Sean were in prison, facing decades behind bars. The truth had been exposed, justice had been served, and the world was marginally better for their efforts. "Actually," Edith said as they reached the cars, "I have a better idea. My place. I'll cook, we'll celebrate properly, and we can discuss the foundation without the pressure of formal business meetings." Miles looked at Sophie, who was nodding enthusiastically. Looked at Zoe, equally excited. Looked at Jordan, who was grinning. That sounds perfect. That evening, in Edith's kitchen with pasta boiling and wine breathing and the girls playing in the next room, Miles felt something he hadn't experienced in 5 years. Peace. Not the absence of conflict, but the presence of purpose achieved, of battles won, of family chosen rather than inherited. Edith touched his arm gently. "You're thinking about Rebecca?" "Always. But also thinking she'd approve of this. Of us fighting back, of making her death mean something, of building something good from the ashes. I think Sean would approve too. He always said the best revenge was living well and fighting hard." They raised glasses, toasted absent friends, and let themselves imagine futures built on truth instead of lies, on justice instead of corruption, on family defined by choice and love, rather than blood and obligation. Later, as Miles tucked Sophie into bed at Edith's guest room, his daughter asked the question he'd been wondering himself. "Are we going to stay here, Dad? With Miss Edith and Zoe? Would you like that?" "Yeah. Zoe's my best friend. And Miss Edith makes you smile the way you used to before Mom died." Miles kissed her forehead, marveling at her perception. "We'll see, sweetheart. But whatever happens, we're going to be okay. Better than okay. We're going to be happy. Because we told the truth. Because we told the truth. And because we found people who matter. That's what makes a family, Sophie. Not blood, but choice. Not perfection, but presence. And we've found that here." He left her sleeping, found Edith on the balcony looking at the city lights. She didn't say anything, just took his hand, and they stood together in comfortable silence. Two people who had lost everything and found each other in the aftermath. Two people who had chosen truth over comfort, justice over safety, and discovered that sometimes the hardest choices led to the most meaningful destinations. The foundation would launch next month. The trials would continue for years. The healing would take even longer. But tonight, in this moment, they had peace. They had purpose. They had each other. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.